Welcome in, everyone, to Barely Educated, podcast by Bears fans, for Bears fans. And it's been a rough week. Also, the sun still rises in the east and sets in the west, everyone, because we're Bears fans, and having a crappy week of football is what we do. With that lovely preamble, I ask you, Chris, as always, joined by the meatball composer, Chris Teichler. Chris, how are you?
Well, I'm all right, actually, today.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then it must be about non-Bears things, which sounds like a healthy adult way to be.
That's right. It's end of the semester. I'm turning in grades today, so yeah.
Yeah, I just did that, actually.
Sweet. Congrats. And I'm going to Chicago in a few days. Woo!
Well, going to Chicago is one thing. Going to the Bears games is a different thing.
I'm not going to the
Chicago,
Bears.
good for you.
You are indeed a dip from Chicago.
Yes, the annual Midwest Band and Orchestra Conference that I go to in Chicago is coming up. So a few days in the city. Looking forward to it.
Very good. I'm a little jealous of that.
We're on a mission from God.
So there's a lot going on in the Bears world since we last talked, where we stupidly picked the Bears to upset the Niners, who came in reeling. But it didn't matter. The Bears were trash, and that's all I have to say about that game in specific. But it has created, I don't know if it's quite a firestorm, but a whole lot of smoke. It was a very bad day for a certain member of this organization.
Yes.
Ryan Poles. This was his locker room.
Oh.
With all their quits. This was his roster getting obliterated 24-0 in the blink of an eye. These were his prized free agent signings on defense, letting George Kittle run free. He loves the Bears.
I love the Bears.
But he does not love Tremaine Edmonds, apparently, because he's sure the Bears can. This was his draft picks, largely not performing. It has been a really rough year for Ryan Poles, in a year that started with many of us celebrating the stages that we were up to, that we thought we were on the rebuild, right? He'd done the teardown. By the way, the teardown's the easy part. People quit giving him credit for the teardown. I guess that's easy.
Yeah.
And now there's a lot of smoke, it feels like to me, about whether he's actually safe. I think that's the big topic for the day. So we'll circle back to it for sure, especially because of the Dan Wiederer hit piece article on Poles. I want to break that down a lot more.
Yeah.
It was great having Alex on last time, and he had a really good video breaking down some of the coaching things that everybody should watch over on his YouTube. And that's the other big story, right, is what's going on with the coaching search and what do we want. I wish, Chris, maybe you're different, but I wish I had more. I wanted to actually talk about the product on the field. But other than Caleb Williams and some of the other young guys that I'm keeping an eye on, I really don't enjoy watching it. Like, if they were starting a journeyman quarterback doing all this, I probably wouldn't even watch the last month. I'd have a red zone up somewhere and be watching whatever the good game is.
Yeah, it's
that's where we're at.
I agree with you totally. Just watching Caleb and Rome, it was fun watching those two connect. Rome needs to perhaps learn not to have a nice touchdown dance when you're still down by 3-4 scores. But
yeah, I mean, they all do it.
But it was great to see them connecting, and hopefully, signs of what we'll see from them in the future. But other than that, yeah, that was a rough game. And real quick, if I can just point out that the 49ers scored 6 points last night at home. Yeah, it was bad weather, but most of the second half, the rain was done and everything. But they sure looked like the 49ers team pre-Bears.
We thought the Bears could beat.
Yes, exactly.
I mean, we fixed their defense, apparently, but not the offense.
Yeah. Just wanted to throw that out there real quick.
So, yeah, that was frustrating on a number of levels. It was a good matchup on paper, but the game was pretty horrible. They no-showed the Niners game. We can go ahead and say that and move on, right? They no-showed it. We moved with the interim. We thought maybe there'd be a bump. It looked to me also like Eric Washington was trying to do this match zone or some hybrid zone man concepts, and they had no idea how to run it. I mean, they didn't know what they were doing at all in the back end, and that's supposed to be the strength of the team.
Yeah.
And that cycles me back to Ryan Poles, because he's the story this week now. He really is. And it's ending as we sit here Friday at 11 with this huge Dan Wiederer piece that we'll get to in a minute. But Ryan Poles said famously, we're going to take the North and never give it back. It would have been way more accurate had he said, we're going to take fourth and never give it back.
Yeah.
Couldn't help it. I'm sorry.
Securely in fourth again in 3 years. Congratulations, Poles. King
Yep,
Poles.
Shame on me for buying into the hype this offseason on some levels. It's fine to be excited about the number 1 overall pick and a first round top 10 pick on top of it.
Yeah.
And some of the moves seem like they could be good on paper. But we should have known that the dysfunction was still going to be there because they stuck with the coach. And we tried to talk ourselves into that. And if Ryan Poles is involved in that process, that is an enormous red X on the grading sheet. It just is. I don't really hold the hiring in the first place against him because I don't think they gave him a real fair shot at his own search. But I don't know if he was too much involved in keeping him. There's all these conflicting reports. It should be that he was, right? GM's job.
Yeah.
Was involved, and he was proud of it, and he told us all about it because he likes to talk, usually, other than that last press conference. But he was involved in Shane Waldron, and they interviewed 10 people and hired the worst one if we go by already out of the league as the criteria. I don't know, man. Do you want that guy leading the head coach search?
He also hired Luke Getsy, did he not?
He was also involved in all that. He didn't trust Flus to make the hire. So basically, the read I have on it right now, pending more information, especially after reading the Wiederer article, is Poles basically was fine with Matt Eberflus because Poles wanted someone who wasn't going to rock the boat and Poles could be fully in charge and be involved in the position coaches and coordinator hires. In some power structures, that's all head coach. GM doesn't bother. That's not what he put in place. And they had a remarkable run of ineptitude in those coaches under his watch. We got a guy who can't keep his pants on, fired last year, Alan Williams. We got the running backs coach fired midway through the year for an HR issue.
What's wrong with you people?
I don't know actually what was Alan Williams, but there's been a lot of rumors about it being something wildly inappropriate, so that's been kind of the joke.
That's been the resurfacing.
But they fired
rumor,
him
yes.
for reasons we don't know right before a game. Beginning of the season, it's a terrible look. It's probably not getting enough attention how bad that is.
Yeah.
Then you've got Getsy and then the other position coaches, and then famously now Shane Waldron. What has Poles done to inspire confidence? In many respects, I don't have a good answer. I don't know what they should do. I know it's a talking point for good reason. This is not Dan Wiederer's article's fault. It is blowing up on Twitter for good reason. So before we get to the article, I want to review a couple things in Poles' track record. We just did the coaches. Okay. And then I want to try to figure out whether we think he should stay or go. Let's go through the drafts.
Okay.
First up is the teardown year. Trade Khalil Mack for a second and a sixth. I don't care what you get with the sixth. It's not that big of a deal. Okay. In that draft, you used second round pick on Kyler Gordon and Jaquan Brisker. The pick from the Mack trade was used for Brisker, a strong safety. I consider that bad process. Anyone who's listened long knows I believe in good process leads to good results more often than anything else will lead to good results. Good process can still have bad results, though. Bad process will almost always have bad results. Brisker did have a concussion history at Penn State. He is a solid leader and a decent enough player. I would call Gordon a good pick and Brisker incomplete based on the health stuff, but process-wise terrible because a box safety in the second round is always dumb, especially if it's because you traded your edge rusher. Positional value makes that terrible. So I'm going good and bad right now.
Okay, sounds good.
Next pick, Baelish Jones.
Oh.
Terrible. Terrible at the time. Everyone's like, he's 27 already. Are you kidding me? It became a meme for a good reason. He had 4 turnovers and 1 touchdown in his time as a
That was one of my favorite things in the Wiederer article today. Was that I could have guessed something like that, but to actually see that's what it was is amazing.
And it was our first hint of one of the flaws that I think we've seen with Ryan Poles. He sometimes gets too cute. Not always, but he does it sometimes. Maybe every GM does. But that was a terrible pick. I don't care about the later picks. They're too much of a crapshoot. It's not fair. I'm just doing the first 3 rounds. Okay. No first round pick. Thank you, Ryan Pace. On to the next year.
You're welcome.
Do we have a single free agent signing? Hang on. Sorry. That year that mattered? No. They were all bad. Okay. Tanking on purpose, which worked thanks to Lovey and Davis Mills. Shout out to them. And that move right there is the only A+ home run move on the ledger. It's a big enough deal it might save him. I might even entertain that idea. But the trade of the number 1 pick is the only thing that makes this even a debate. So let me finish outlining it. Let's go to the next draft.
Right.
Okay, first round pick. After trading down 1 spot, they picked Darnell Wright. Far and away the best lineman on the team.
Yep.
It's a good pick. It's basically a brainless pick. It's a good pick. And can I just say, I'm so tired of the Jalen Carter narrative. Did you guys watch the Niners game? What do you think Jalen Carter's doing on this team? They didn't have the culture to pick him. The Bears were right to not do that. Yeah, it's lame. You should try to make an organization that's good enough and deep enough and has enough good veterans that you can make that pick, but they weren't there yet, and I don't know that they're there still.
Yeah.
But I did not disagree with that logic. And they needed O-line just as bad. You know how bad the O-line would be right now if we're sitting there going, we don't have a right tackle either? Yeah. Come on. Hogan Johnson won't shut up about this thing. I'm so sick of it.
Lawrence Holmes, too.
Jalen Carter's really good. So is Darnell Wright.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? Jervon Dexter's pretty good. He's our next pick. Right? He's pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
He's not a problem. Those are 2 good picks. Here's the one that I think might swing it. Tyreek Stevenson.
Yeah.
Really bad first half. Okay, rookie corner last year. Turned it on the second half with turnover production, which is fleeting. You really have to be careful with that. Guys are still getting open all the time, especially if he's trying to be the coverage in zone. He stinks at zone because he's a knucklehead. And then you have all the dumb stuff this year that is almost impossible to believe, especially the Hail Mary. But he trips the Jamison Williams, gets away with it, gets fined. But he's still a knucklehead. He's not. It's most games that's going to be 15 yards.
Yeah.
Trash talking and gets penalties. Pokes a guy in the face or whatever. He's a knucklehead in the worst sense. That's a bad pick. He had character concerns coming in, and that one really hurts because your secondary was supposed to be the strength of your team,
mm-hmm.
and you're trying to figure out if Ryan Poles has done well enough to keep. That's a big miss. And it's only going to get better if he becomes a better person and more intelligent player. And I don't know that that's realistic. Is that too harsh? I just don't know. He's too immature right now to say that that's anything but a bad pick.
And it's the same things again and again. The knucklehead penalties. So, yeah.
Just not paying attention. Focused on the wrong things. All of it's related. Third round. Zach Pickens. I want to know from commenters, if they want to reach out on Twitter, how many people listening could tell me exactly what position he plays and where he went to school?
I can't.
Terrible pick. He's been horrible. He's been hurt too, but he's also just been bad. He gets pushed around. He's supposed to be the 3 tech, went to NC State, and he's bad. Okay? The draft is hard, but we're trying to look at a track record to figure out what we're keeping if we're keeping him.
Mm-hmm.
Fast forward now, because we're just doing the first 3 rounds to this year. Caleb and Rome obviously wins.
Boom,
and I'll
boom.
say something here on Rome. Yeah, they probably needed O-line worse. I don't know that you can pick a guard there. I don't know that you were ready to move on from Braxton Jones yet. You could certainly claim they should have picked a tackle. I get it. Rome is having basically the same year as Marvin Harrison Jr., and I think Jefferson and Chase spoiled everybody on rookie receivers. He's fine. He's going to be good. It's not a bad pick. It's fine.
I have no issue with Rome. I'm happy to have him, and I think he's going to be a really, really solid pro wide receiver.
I'd like his dad to shut up on Twitter. But that's it. But yeah, I agree. Also, the caveat here is this year is really too early to tell. In some senses, all of this is too early to tell, but they're going to have to make a decision here in a month. And we'll get back to it. So, second round, Did they have a second round? No. Do you remember why?
The trade for Claypool, right?
Not
Is that right?
Claypool. That was the year before.
Oh,
But that was
excuse
a
me.
big whiff. The trade for Montez Sweat.
Oh, Sweat. Okay, all right.
But since you
That's
brought it up, let's do Claypool. Terrible miss. Maybe the worst of his time.
yeah.
Okay. Is the Montez Sweat trade a good use of a second round pick?
Yeah, I'd say so.
I'm still fine with it. Not a good year. Been banged up a lot.
Yeah,
I'm going to say it's fine.
I agree with
It
Dan.
looked like a home run last year. It doesn't now. That's what I mean when I say this has been a really bad year for polls. Stuff we liked, we don't like as much. Some of it, Tyreek, we don't like at all. That's rough. It's been a terrible year for him. I'm sure he's devastated, hence the press conference body language.
Mhm.
Third round, Kieran Amagaje, pre-injured tackle from Ivy League school Yale.
Yeah, you got to help me out with that one.
It's either bad or incomplete. It's certainly not been good so far. But again, this year it's kind of like too hard to even do this fairly. The point I'm trying to make is he's supposedly credited for being a really good draft evaluator, but there's enough misses that I'm kind of like, I think you could probably do better there. But it's not a train wreck. Now do free agency.
Oh boy.
Everybody the first year was bargain shopping to reset the cap, so throw that out and do trades. Claypool trade,
Bad.
terrible.
F
Absolutely
minus.
terrible.
I'd even give it a G.
Mac trade?
Max still looks good.
I'd say that's a bad move. I know the money's an issue there. I don't think that didn't make this team better, and I don't know if it helped enough on the cap. Maybe give like if you want to do a letter grade, call it like a C
At best, yeah.
at best. But you could talk me lower. That one's a little trickier. The Roquan trade.
That has not worked out.
You know why? Because Tremaine Edmonds signing now. Edwards good
Yes.
value. Edmonds not so much, and they tried to do a 2 linebackers for 1 with the money there. But
Yeah,
Edmonds stinks.
I really, really wanted him.
Too many games.
I thought he could be good, and I have been proven wrong.
There's too many games where he's terrible. There is
Yeah.
impact plays here and there. He's just not consistent. It's
Yeah.
not a good move. We just have to say it.
Yeah.
All right. What are the other ones somewhere in there? Oh well, Robert Quinn trade, fine. We had no use for him at that point. He didn't hardly play for them either. But like the big moves are entirely reliant on the trade with the Panthers. And then we circle back to his hirings. Because Wiederer does this in the article.
Yes.
And they are sheer
Oh,
pain.
I thought
Misery.
I thought you were going to say something else.
Terrible.
Yeah. Yeah, they were sheer pain. Like, whoa, dump,
Yep.
dump. Yeah.
No, we're good. I won't do that to you.
But yes.
And then you get to firing Eberflus and the press conference after, and he's up there like a neutered puppy. And Warren's dressed completely different. Their body language is completely different. Warren talks for 8 minutes in his opening remarks, polls for 2. Warren gives the lip service that he's safe.
Yeah.
And we're all going, is he? He doesn't look like he thinks he's safe.
No.
And then we get the article from Wiederer today, which is sourced. And I'll let you recap some of that since you just read it too.
Well, I think the part that jumped out to me the most, and I don't know if are you cool with me getting into a specific thing here or
Oh, absolutely. Pull it up
Okay.
and quote it. Yeah.
Regarding the Eberflus pick, here's what he had to say that jumped out at me. In retrospect, the evaluation seems grossly misguided.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
Even at the time, the Eberflus hiring left many around the NFL scratching their heads. Not only had Poles, a 36-year-old first-time GM, pushed in all of his chips on a first-time head coach with whom he had no prior working relationship, but he formalized Eberflus's hiring less than 48 hours after he accepted his own job, blah, blah, blah. Next paragraph. Inside league circles, many wondered why Poles had been so enamored with a candidate who hadn't generated much buzz and wasn't highly sought after. Sure, Eberflus had done a decent job coordinating the Indianapolis Colts defense and had been a head coaching candidate in several previous cycles, and in 2022 he was a finalist for the Jaguars job.
Same year he got the Bears
Peterson.
job, to be fair.
But the Bears' initial union with Eberflus elicited more shrugs around the NFL than commendations. Multiple league sources have told the Tribune that had the Bears not hired Eberflus, the Colts were set to fire him. And he quite possibly might have had to seek a position coach role elsewhere in the league.
But
that
keep
was the
going.
record scratch moment in my head when I read this. The Colts were set to fire him?
When you started, I thought that's where you were going, but I think the next bit is also really telling.
Okay.
But carry on.
That was the part to me that like, what? What? They were going to fire him, and you decide, I'm going to make him the head coach.
Incredible.
So that was it for me. The big moment of, oh my gosh, what was
For me, it's the
Poles?
next bit. I think
Okay,
it's the next
take it.
bit.
Take
Well,
it.
I don't have it pulled up now, and
Okay.
now it's wanting me to pay. So somehow I got to read it.
Okay. Well, I paid $1 for a year, so I'll read it.
Loyal Tribune supporter, Teichler.
That's me. Yeah. Shut up. Instead, Poles handed him, Eberflus, the Bears head coaching role. Said one league source, when you talk about trying to find the next hot guy at such an important time for your franchise, the Bears should have been asking themselves, who else really wants Eberflus? He was red flagged to fail immediately.
Because this is the next section where they talk about him connecting with players and basically being a giant dork.
Yes.
Yeah, that's the money line for me.
Throughout his coaching tenure, Eberflus was described inside Hallis Hall as, quote, awkward, corny, and inexplicably isolated at times, even when it came to interacting with his assistant coaches.
What the heck, man?
There was a miscalculation on the connectivity piece with Matt and his ability to rally guys, one source said.
And whose miscalculation is it essentially, even though it's probably a little unfair?
Well, it's the GM. Yeah.
The GM. Guys, I'm a fan. I try to talk myself into stuff because if I can't root for it and try to enjoy it, what's the point? But this is a toxic relationship I have with this stupid franchise. And we said it the day of the press conference or whenever we recorded. He didn't inspire any confidence to me. Hear him talk for 3 seconds and you know he's a mess.
It's principle.
He's a cornball. He's a goofball. Look, we are all wired fundamentally as human beings to immediately make snap judgments on people based on things like the way they comport themselves, the way their body posture, their dress, their outward appearance, the way they sound when they talk. All of this is innately wired in our DNA, every one of us. It sometimes is really grossly unfair. I get that. But how do you sit there in these interviews with multiple candidates and go, that's the one? I could tell immediately, and so could almost everyone else that's a fan. And here's the answer. Because George wants to hire George.
Oh.
And George wants little nice guys who are just going to agree. And George gives Poles 3 names and tells him to pick one. That's where I'm like, you can't really put this on Poles exactly. And I think Poles wanted someone who wasn't going to rock the boat. But do you remember the 3 names?
I do not.
Dan Quinn.
Oh, right. Yes.
Matt Eberflus and Jim Caldwell.
That's right. Okay.
2 of them are very similar, low-key, agreeable folks. Dan Quinn should have been the guy, of course, but he pulled himself out right before they made the decision. So really, then it's down to 2. And they didn't have a real coaching search because, as always, the Bears do things goofy. They cast this wide net, hired the GM, and then shrunk the net down on him. And now we're sitting here going, should he be fired? And that's where it's like, man, that is tough. And then I go, yeah, but he was involved in Waldron. And he might have been involved in keeping Eberflus, which was the crucial mistakes. So it's on the table. I don't know what they should do. I know this. This is my final answer on the Poles thing for the moment, with new data coming every week, it seems like. It seems like it'd be a little unfair to fire him based on all that. But I would understand it. I also understand if they keep him, extend him, and pair his contract with the new coach, then they don't have to worry about the whole, they didn't draft the quarterback thing, right? And line it up at least. What I absolutely do not want is lame duck GM.
Yeah, that's the worst situation.
Lovey Emery thing.
Yep.
That would be the worst situation. I think the most important part of this is probably unknown at the moment. If I have to move on from Ryan Poles to get Ben Johnson and I don't know, Detroit's assistant GM, let's just say, then I'm doing it.
Yes, absolutely.
Ryan Poles will not be someone I retain if it loses me the top candidate.
Right.
But it's crazy to me that this article is written during the season while he's still here. And I don't know how not to conclude somebody up there is testing the waters. This is sourced. He's not doing what we're doing, where he's just like, let me just look at the moves. He's doing that and telling you what people are saying in the building.
Yeah.
Am I crazy, or does that seem like it was a very deliberate leak?
No, that's a great point, and it comes after what's arguably the worst loss of the season because of the expectations and who you
The
were
lack
going
of
up
effort.
with.
He was going to fix the culture with Eberflus.
Uh-huh.
Here's your culture writ large.
You even got Jalen Johnson quitting in that game. To me, that was the
Business decisions all over that.
the
secondary.
goal line. The goal line where he just let
Yeah.
what's his name, Garando, the third.
And I mean, I get it. He's frustrated. I'm not going to.
I know, but
do it. But you're right.
But
He's
he's
the captain.
he's a captain. He's one of the best players on the team. That to me was very, very,
Pretty bad.
very telling. Yeah.
And honestly, they have 8 captains because they have so many great leaders. No, you don't have any, actually.
Yeah.
It's like having 2 quarterbacks
Mm-hmm.
in college, right? You just don't have one.
Yeah.
8 captains is kind of a joke now that we look back. So we got a lot wrong going into the season. I think all of us had more optimism, but the Bears had the most.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
I just don't know what you do with this GM thing right now. He's going to be babysat, though, for sure. And if he has to be babysat, you can certainly question whether he should be the GM.
Sort of related back to the article, the next paragraph that we left off. To be clear, Eberflus was never forced on polls, at least not by anyone employed at Hallis Hall. The two share representation in agent Trace Armstrong.
So the agent.
And per Poll's account, had become friendly after meeting years back through mutual acquaintances. So I don't know how.
Okay, so that's great. That's very telling. That also,
Yes.
I don't know if I believe it, but I know it tells me that Hallis Hall wants you to know that he was responsible for the coach. Now,
Yes.
that's pretty interesting too.
Mm-hmm.
That's awfully juicy. So that's Warren saying, "Well, I didn't do it. Maybe Phillips did it," or it's somebody else saying, "We didn't make him do it." George, right? I mean, who's the source? It's probably not the owner, but this is a very, very uncomfortable article for Ryan Poles. I feel bad for him on some level though, because the structure of the organization is such a mess. Like all I know is if Ben Johnson wants to work with somebody else, then that's what I'm going to give him. Because Poles has not done a good enough job to retain at the risk of losing my preferred coach.
It would have to be a Warren decision then, not a Poll's decision. Well,
And Warren's babysitting the process. So
yeah, he sure is. Yeah.
the consensus on Bears Twitter amongst the smarter fans, the people who like do the film watching and a lot of the analysis, they're like amateurs, but they're probably better than some of the real journalists. That's some of it.
Yeah.
Jonathan Wood types.
Mhm.
They're basically saying this makes Black Monday a whole lot more interesting because it looks like it could go either way. And by the way, that losing streak's very likely to be up to 11.
Yeah, who are they going
Can
to
he
be?
survive 2 double-digit losing streaks to end 2 of his 3 seasons? Gosh, like what are we doing here? It doesn't
Yep.
seem like we're serious. We love to celebrate a losing streak in Chicago, though. Just let George tell you all about the character and the resiliency of the losing streak.
We love ending a losing.
Oh yeah, look at that. We ended it. Oh, aren't we amazing? Well, we didn't end it. The next year started.
Well, it was the Matt Nagy last or second to last year when they.
Yeah, I know. It's just
yeah.
that was 6. Eberflus had a 10, stretched to a 14 over the next year, and we're at what are we? 8 now? 7.
7
now, and we got at Minnesota. Monday Night Football. Let's preview it. Okay, Vikings 34, Bears 20. They're
Sounds about
good.
right.
We're not.
Take
All
it
right.
over.
Then what is it? Home for the Lions?
Yes, home for the Lions. And then
So we're gonna pick the Bears to beat the best team in the league because they're at home and they play the Lions tough. Maybe.
Maybe, but no.
Where's the win?
Maybe Thursday, the following Thursday, with the Seahawks.
Because it's a Thursday.
Mm-hmm.
They're better than the Bears, but it's a Thursday. There's your best hope, probably. Maybe at Green Bay with nothing to play for because they won't play Philly. They avoid Philly and they don't care if it's Seattle or Tampa or something, and they rest. But do you really think they're going to rest?
No, they don't. They want to keep pounding them. That'll be 12 wins in a row. They don't want to give that up.
By the time the Bears will have so much quit by that point that they can rest the starters for the second half and still pound the Bears. There's not a game they're favored for sure. There's maybe not a win. I don't know. I really want them to win because I hate the streak. And I hate it for Caleb and the other players. But
Yeah.
I'm saying is it's going to perhaps get even worse for Poles when you look at that schedule. So this has been a 30-minute breakdown of, holy cow, they might have to fire the GM too, but I don't know. And that's because sourced reporting is making you go, wait a minute. Wild.
The other question I would have is the reports on whether Poles really wanted to fire Flus after the Arizona game, or maybe it was the New England game, whichever one of those two that it was, and ownership prevented him. I would really like to know, is that true? Or is that Poles trying to leak something? And because he was behind Flus.
There's going to be a very juicy article one day.
Yeah.
Even juicier than this one. We can't, but even that, even if it's true, the real issue is still bringing Eberflus back and landing on Waldron after all was said and done.
Yeah.
Even if we liked it, the result was terrible as it turned out.
Yeah.
So we're wrong all the time. We're not paid to be right about this. He is. You know what I mean? Like at some point, I just wonder where it's going. I really don't know.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much the story of the day. I don't know what else
to
to
cover. Story, yeah.
It's a huge story.
Quick little side note, Bears fans, if you get a chance, go back, watch some of Hard Knocks, and look at Caleb's face when he's one-on-one with Eberflus.
Yeah, we talked about it at the time.
And we did talk about it at the time, but now
I was like, hopefully it's just because he knows it's fake for the camera. But now I'm like, nah, he knows this guy can't coach.
That's definitely this guy's an idiot face.
No, it is.
But kudos to Caleb, man. He's still fighting, and his attitude is amazing. He's
still the reason for hope.
He's going to get robbed of Rookie of the Year just because of the team, even though
for sure. His numbers are actually better than Stroud's right now.
yeah, he was put, I think, on the list that NFL.com puts out. He's above Stroud now. So I think one spot ranked above Stroud. But anyway, just the team is really hurting his perception as the player that he really is around the league. Because, the stats are good. The no interceptions are good. But just watch. This is why I love eye test. Watch him. Watch what he has to deal with. Watch what he's doing on the fly. I think... to me, it's obvious he's the best rookie quarterback, and I'm a little bit biased, but he's in by far the worst situation of Daniels and Nick.
Yeah, and we thought it was a good one.
We thought it was the best one. It was a nest. Remember, it was a nest.
We built the nest. The receivers are good. The defense is good. Yeah, but we are honestly so much more involves coaching than we want to admit.
Yep. And I can't remember who it was who said this. I texted you about it. Somebody. One of the writers, I think, or maybe one of the score hosts pointed out that the Bears built a 7-on-7 team.
That was a great comment. I think it was Olin Kreutz.
Was it Kreutz? Yeah, okay, all right, yeah, just fantastic. That's exactly it.
From Kevin Fishbane. Bears are, of course, 7-point underdogs. Bears have lost 10 in a row as 7+ point underdogs and are 1-22 in their last 23.
Is that bad?
What might be worse, they're 6-17 against the spread in those 23.
Oh, gosh.
Monday Night Football will mark the Bears' 19th game as TD plus underdogs since the start of 2021, or 29% of the games. In almost a third of the games, Vegas tells you they stink in the last 4 years. Yes, counting this year.
Oh.
Ben Johnson, come on down. And we'll have way more to say on the coaching stuff at some point, but I've got to point out a couple quick things. Colin Cowherd's video that our guy Alex reacted to, where Cowherd said Sean McVay was a culture changer. Yeah. I can't believe I have to say this, but I'm going to for anyone who cares. When you're comparing historical comps on the coaching hires, you have to consider what they were at the time they were hired, not what they might be also having demonstrated now.
Right.
Sean McVay was boy genius, play caller, wonder kid, offensive coordinator guy,
Correct.
not culture guy.
Yep.
So he is a comp for Ben Johnson.
Mhm.
Okay. And Mike Vrabel is the other big candidate. Oh, he's been successful. He ran the worst division in football for 3 or 4 years. He had Derrick Henry, a unicorn. I had no doubt he'll conduct himself better than Eberflus, and there'll be things. He's a floor guy. He's a hire to raise the floor. That's boring, and I don't want it at all. He's better than Eberflus, sure. But that Titans run is being way overinflated because people are completely ignoring the division.
That's a great point.
And he did lose coordinators, and they say, oh, well, then he can hire a new one. And he did a good job twice with the hire. Fine, but that's still the most unstable way to do this.
Yeah.
And my last point is a little game I want us to play. Let's go through the top contenders.
Okay.
All right. And I want to ask a simple question. 2, offense or defense, first time when they got that gig or not,
Okay.
as a coach. And the results, I think, were actually pretty telling. Though, again, I have my own biases here. So, up first, the AFC, Kansas City Chiefs, head coach, offense or defense?
Andy Reid is an offensive genius.
First or second shot in the NFL?
Second.
Okay. Chargers,
Jim
offense, second.
Harbaugh. Yes.
Okay. Broncos, offense, second.
Yes.
That division is a total outlier. Texans, defense, first. By the way, if you want to do Super Bowl contenders, the list is way shorter, and we don't even cover the Chargers, Broncos, or Texans. But let's just go ahead and do division winners too. Texans, defense, but first. Steelers, defense, but first. Now, I don't care if he's been there forever. He was hired as an unproven coach.
Yes, he was.
Ravens, special teams, first.
Like Dick, my friend.
Bills, defense, and first. Okay, so once we leave the AFC West, we have not had another coach who had been a coach before. Eagles, offense and first. Commanders, defense and second. But that's wild card again. If we're actually doing Super Bowl, they're not really in the list. That's fine. I'm expanding it. It's fine. Lions, offense and first. Vikings, offense and first. Packers, offense and first. I refuse to take the NFC South winner seriously. Seahawks, defense and first. Rams, offense and first.
A lot of firsts in there.
Stop saying you have to have a guy with experience that it's better. You don't know that. Many times those guys fail again because they failed once. And for the record, the guys that are getting the second crack at it in the AFC West had all been to Super Bowls and either won them or been to multiple in their first gig. Those candidates don't exist in this cycle, except for the guy that just went to North Carolina who would have been a terrible fit for the Bears.
Yeah, yes, he would have been.
Whatever else you want to analyze about Ben Johnson versus Mike Vrabel, stop acting like first-time head coach is a huge problem. They're all over the league kicking butt.
Yep.
That's all I got.
I think our division is a great example to look at. Because, like you said, they're all offense, they're all first-time head coaches, and it's the best division in football.
Yep.
All right, let's wrap it up there, shall we?
Yep.
We'll talk to you sometime next week after Bears-Vikings game. I'll be in Chicago for that. Yay! Find us on the socials at bearlyeducated. Email us, bearlyeducatedpod@gmail.com.
Caleb Williams.
Isn't anybody gonna help that poor man?
I hope so.
I'm begging you, please! Come on, please!
He is the chosen one.
My Chicago Bears.
I love the Bears.